Falling for a mute girl. My name is Ethan. I'm 32, and most people know me as the guy you don't mess with. It's not just my looks, though standing 6'3" with broad shoulders and a few scars here and there doesn't help. It's my life. I've been through things that would scare most men. People fear me, and I've gotten used to that. It was easier to live without anyone getting too close, but that all changed the moment I saw her. It was a regular day in the city, crowded streets and noisy markets, when my eyes landed on a woman who took my breath away. She was standing by a flower shop, gently touching the petals of a rose. She was beautiful. No, not just beautiful. Stunning. The kind of beauty that you couldn't ignore, no matter who you were. Her name was Katrina, and I learned that from listening in on someone nearby. She was 25, young and full of life. Her long, dark hair flowed in soft waves down her back, and the way the sun caught it made it shine like silk. Her skin was smooth and glowing, a soft golden tan that made her look almost unreal. But it was her eyes that trapped me. Big, deep brown eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 secrets. And that smile. God, that smile. It was soft, innocent, yet so full of mystery. Like she knew something the rest of the world didn't. I felt my heart race in a way it never had before. I'm not the kind of man who falls for a pretty face. I've seen plenty in my time, but there was something about her that was different. I couldn't help myself. I started to follow her, not in a creepy way, but I just had to know more about her. Katrina moved gracefully, every step light, like she was floating. She stopped at a cafe, sitting by herself. And I sat a few tables away, pretending to read a newspaper, but really just stealing glances at her. She sipped her coffee, her fingers delicate, her lips touching the cup in the most sensual way. I imagined what it would be like to kiss those lips. I wanted to talk to her, but something held me back. Maybe it was the fear of rejection. I wasn't exactly the kind of guy women fell for easily. Dangerous men like me usually stayed alone. But with her, I felt something I hadn't in years. Hope. A week passed, and I kept watching her. I noticed something strange. She never spoke. People would greet her, smile at her, and she would just nod and smile back, but never say a word. It made me curious. I wanted to know why. So one day, I finally gathered the courage to approach her. "Hi," I said, my voice rougher than I intended. She looked up at me with those big brown eyes, her lips curving into that soft smile, and gestured with her hand. I frowned, confused. She tried again, moving her hands in a way that seemed like she was speaking. That's when it hit me. She couldn't speak. Katrina was mute. For a moment, I didn't know what to do. How do you talk to someone who can't talk back? But then I saw the way she looked at me. Like she wasn't afraid. Like she didn't care that I was this dangerous guy everyone else feared. All she did was smile. And somehow, that was enough. I sat down beside her and pulled out my phone, typing a quick message. "Can I buy you a coffee?" I showed it to her, and she nodded, her smile growing even brighter. I couldn't help but smile back. She might not have been able to speak, but there was so much she said with her eyes. Over the next few weeks, we became friends. She taught me how to communicate with her using sign language. It was slow at first, but I picked it up because I wanted to know everything she had to say. We spent hours together, sometimes in silence, sometimes laughing over small things. And every day, I found myself falling for her more and more. One evening, we were sitting in the park, the sunset painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Katrina was sitting close to me, and I couldn't help but notice how her hair smelled like fresh flowers. Her skin soft against my arm as we brushed shoulders. I turned to her, my heart racing, and without thinking, I reached out and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. She looked up at me, her eyes wide, and for a second, I thought I had crossed a line. But then, she leaned in closer, her lips just inches from mine. My breath caught in my throat as I watched her, waiting, hoping. Then, without a word, she kissed me. It was soft at first, gentle, but then I kissed her back, my hands sliding into her hair as I pulled her closer. Her lips were warm, soft, and tasted like the coffee we had shared earlier. The kiss deepened, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. A connection. A real connection. When we finally pulled apart, she smiled at me. Her cheeks flushed and signed something quickly with her hands. "What did you say?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She laughed silently and pulled out her phone, typing. I said, "I've been wanting to do that for a long time." From that moment on, things between us changed. We spent more time together, sometimes doing nothing but sitting in comfortable silence. I started taking her hand more often, holding her close whenever I could. There was something about her touch that calmed the storm inside me. One night, as we were lying under the stars, I turned to her and asked, "What kind of partner do you want in life?" She paused for a moment, then slowly signed the word loyal. That's all she wanted. Someone who would stay by her side, no matter what. And I knew, in that moment, I would be that man for her. Our relationship grew deeper with every passing day. We shared kisses, stolen moments in hidden corners, soft whispers of affection in the silence. Katrina showed me that love didn't need words. It was in the way she looked at me, the way her hands gently caressed my face, the way she pulled me close when we kissed under the moonlight. But just when everything seemed perfect, life threw us a curveball. Katrina and I had built something special. Every touch, every glance was filled with meaning. And even though she couldn't speak, she spoke to me in ways no words ever could. Our bond grew so strong that I couldn't imagine my life without her anymore. Her smile became my reason to wake up, her presence the only peace in my stormy life. One evening, under the moonlight, I held her close, the cool breeze wrapping around us like a soft blanket. I could smell her perfume, something sweet, with a hint of jasmine. I couldn't resist brushing my lips softly against her neck, feeling her shiver under my touch. She turned her face toward mine, those brown eyes locking with mine, and I knew then I was hers, completely. She leaned in and kissed me deeply, her hands gently resting on my chest. It was slow, like time itself had stopped, and all that mattered was the two of us. My heart raced as I pulled her closer, feeling the warmth of her body pressed against mine. The kiss deepened, becoming more intense, more urgent. It wasn't just passion, it was a connection, something that went beyond physical attraction. I wanted all of her heart, her soul. We spent nights together, lying under the stars, her head resting on my chest as I traced patterns on her skin. She would use her hands to sign little things, telling me her dreams, her wishes, her fears. I learned her language, every movement of her fingers, like a secret only I could understand. She told me she loved the way I protected her, how I made her feel safe. And in those quiet moments, I would pull her into my arms and kiss her softly, whispering against her lips, "I'll never let you go." But just when I thought life couldn't get any more perfect, everything started to unravel. It began with small things. Katrina grew more distant, her eyes filled with a sadness I couldn't understand. She would still smile at me, but it wasn't the same. The light in her eyes began to dim, and I could feel her pulling away. Little by little, I asked her what was wrong, but she would just shake her head, gesturing that everything was fine. One night, after a particularly long day, I decided to surprise her. I had rented out a small cabin by the lake, a place where we could be alone, just the two of us. I imagined us sitting by the fire, wrapped in each other's arms, lost in our own little world. But when I arrived at her apartment to pick her up, something felt off. The door was slightly open. My heart raced as I stepped inside, calling out her name. "Katrina?" No answer. I pushed the door open further and walked in, only to find her sitting on the floor, her knees pulled up to her chest, tears streaming down her face. I rushed to her side, pulling her into my arms. She was shaking, her body trembling as she sobbed silently. I had never seen her like this before. So broken, so vulnerable. "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice desperate. But she couldn't answer. Instead, she reached for her phone and typed out something that made my heart stop. "I'm sick, Ethan. Really sick." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, even though deep down, I already knew the answer. She pulled away from me slightly and signed the word cancer. My heart shattered. I felt numb, completely lost in that moment. The woman I loved, the woman who had become my world, was sick, and there was nothing I could do to fix it. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to fight the universe for being so unfair. But all I could do was hold her tighter, burying my face in her hair as she silently cried in my arms. Days turned into weeks, and the world around us seemed to blur as we faced this together. She started treatment, and I was by her side every single step of the way. The chemo took a toll on her, stealing her strength, her energy, even her beautiful hair. But to me, she was still the most beautiful woman in the world. Every night as she lay in bed, weak and exhausted, I would crawl in beside her, holding her close, whispering promises I wasn't sure I could keep. "You're gonna get through this," I'd say, brushing my lips against her forehead. "I'm not going anywhere." But as much as I tried to stay strong for her, I was falling apart inside. I hated seeing her like this, so fragile, so unlike the vibrant woman I had fallen in love with. There were nights when I'd step outside, just to scream into the darkness, to let out the rage and frustration that was building inside me. I couldn't lose her. Not now. Not after everything. One night, as we lay under the stars again, her body weak but her spirit still fighting, she reached for my hand and signed something slowly, her fingers trembling. "I love you, Ethan. Thank you for staying." I felt tears fill my eyes, but I blinked them away. not wanting her to see me like this. I love you too, Katrina, more than anything. She smiled, but it was a sad smile, like she knew something I didn't. Weeks later, after another round of treatment, she sat me down and signed something I never wanted to hear. I don't want you to fight anymore, Ethan. I stared at her, shaking my head. What are you talking about? We're going to beat this. We're going to get through it. But she just shook her head, her eyes filled with tears. It's not about winning or losing. I want to live. Even if it's for a short time, I want to live without the pain, without the hospitals, without the fear. I just want to be with you. It felt like someone had punched me in the gut. I wanted to scream, to tell her she couldn't give up. But as I looked into her eyes, I realized she wasn't giving up. She was choosing to live her life on her terms. And so we spent our final days together. We didn't talk about the future. We just lived in the present, savoring every kiss, every touch, every moment. One evening, as the sun set over the lake, Katrina kissed me softly, her hands resting on my chest. I pulled her close, feeling her heartbeat against mine. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't angry, because in that moment, I realized that love wasn't about forever. It was about the moments you shared, the memories you made, the way someone made you feel alive, even in the darkest of times. And as I held her in my arms under the stars, I knew that no matter what happened, I would carry her with me forever. The days passed, and the world around us seemed to slow down. Katrina's illness weighed heavy on both of us, but it wasn't the sickness that broke me. It was the realization that no matter how much I loved her, no matter how fiercely I fought for her, I couldn't stop time. One evening, after a long day by the lake, she lay in my arms as the cool breeze carried the scent of pine through the air. The stars were scattered like diamonds across the night sky, reflecting in her brown eyes. She rested her head on my chest, and I could feel her heartbeat, faint but steady, like the last flicker of a candle about to go out. I kissed her forehead, my lips lingering there, as if I could protect her from the inevitable if I just held her tight enough. She looked up at me, her eyes tired, yet filled with a quiet kind of peace. She lifted her hand, her fingers slowly moving in the familiar signs I had come to understand so deeply. Ethan, don't cry for me when I'm gone. You've already given me more than I could have ever asked for. I tried to hold it together, but the tears betrayed me, sliding down my cheeks. I can't. I don't know how to live without you, I whispered, my voice trembling. The thought of losing her, of facing the world without her, was too much to bear. She smiled softly, her hand brushing away my tears. Her touch was delicate, like a feather against my skin. She signed slowly, her fingers shaking. You'll live. You'll find love again. I shook my head fiercely. No, you're the only one. You're it for me, Katrina. She pressed her fingers to my lips, silencing my protests. And then she signed something that shattered me. I want you to remember me, but I don't want to be your last love. I want you to be happy. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I broke down, sobbing into her shoulder, holding her as tightly as I could, afraid that if I let go, she would disappear. But even in my grief, she was the one comforting me, her hand running through my hair, her lips pressing soft kisses against my forehead. The night grew colder, but neither of us moved. We stayed there, wrapped in each other's warmth, our bodies intertwined. I could hear her breathing, slow and shallow, and with every breath, I felt time slipping away. "Do you remember the first time I saw you?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "You were sitting at that coffee shop, sketching in your notebook. I thought you were the most beautiful woman I had ever seen." She smiled at the memory, her eyes closing for a moment, as if she could picture it all again. "And you were the mysterious man who never smiled," she signed, her fingers trembling. "I thought you were dangerous." "I was dangerous," I said, kissing her cheek. "But you saved me, Katrina. You gave me a reason to change." Her smile faded, and she looked up at me, her eyes searching mine as if she was trying to memorize every detail of my face. And then she signed something that broke my heart all over again. "Promise me you'll smile when you think of me. Promise me you won't let the sadness win." "I promise," I whispered, even though I wasn't sure I could keep that promise. The days that followed were bittersweet. We made the most of every moment, knowing that our time together was limited. I would read to her by the fire, her head resting on my lap, while she traced patterns on my arm with her fingers. Sometimes we didn't even need to speak. Our silence was enough. It was in those quiet moments that I felt her love the most. But as much as I tried to hold on, the day finally came when I had to say goodbye. It was a sunny afternoon, and she was lying in bed, her body frail and weak, but her spirit still strong. I sat beside her, holding her hand, my thumb brushing over her soft skin. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a peace I didn't understand. How could she be so calm when my world was falling apart? She lifted her hand one last time, signing slowly, each movement deliberate and full of meaning. "I love you, Ethan. Don't forget that." "I love you too, Katrina," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I'll never forget." And then, with one final fragile breath, she was gone. The silence that followed was unbearable. It was as if the world had stopped moving, as if the very air had been sucked out of the room. I sat there, holding her hand, unable to let go, unable to accept that she was really gone. How could someone so full of life just disappear? I stayed with her for hours, whispering promises I wasn't sure I could keep, my heart breaking into a million pieces. The love of my life had been taken from me, and I didn't know how to move forward. Days turned into weeks, and the grief consumed me. I would wake up in the middle of the night, reaching for her, only to find the space beside me empty. I would see something that reminded me of her. A flower, a sunset, the way the rain fell, and I would break down all over again. But through it all, I remembered her last words to me. "Don't let the sadness win." And so, little by little, I began to heal. I would go to the places we used to visit, sitting in silence, feeling her presence around me. I would think of her smile, her laugh, the way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention. And slowly, the tears turned to smiles, just like she had wanted. But I never forgot her. I could never forget her.